So to begin, you can make a magic circle or go ahead and chain 4, slip stitch to that first chain to make a ring. So now I have this ring and I'm going to be working my stitches in the center of that ring. Chain 1 for row 1, and I'm going to work an extended single crochet puff into that ring. In an extended single crochet puff stitch, we're going to insert my hook into that center of that ring, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, 2 loops on our hook, insert our hook back into that space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over and pull up a nice tall loop. Yarn over, insert our hook into that same space, yarn over, pull up a nice tall loop. I should have 7 loops on my hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yarn over, pull through all the loops on our hook, and then chain 1 to close that puff stitch. And I've completed my first extended single crochet puff. I'm going to be working 3 more extended single crochet puffs all into that same space. So work another puff stitch into that space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull through 1, 3 loops, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a tall loop, yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a tall loop, yarn over, pull through all the loops on the hook, and chain 1 to close that stitch. 2 more puff stitches to go, and so just repeat those same steps. And when you're working those puff stitches, I'm going to show you here, I've got 1 more to go. So for my last puff here, I'm going to show you a trick. So I'm going to work my first extended single crochet, my second extended single crochet. Once I've worked those first 2 extended single crochets and I go to finish my puff stitch, you're probably going to find it helpful after you pull up your tall loop. So I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. You're going to find it helpful to hold those loops with your thumb. Yarn over, and see I've grabbed now that yarn over with my thumb to hold it in place while I'm inserting my hook. So I'm not losing the height of that loop, because if I don't hold it, it's going to be floppy. I could pull it tight. Now I don't have a very tall loop. So you're going to want to hold those loops in place. I'm going to show you again. Work my first 2 extended single crochets here, and then pull up my tall loop, grab it, hold it with my thumb. As I yarn over, hold it with my thumb in place, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a nice tall loop, and now I can finish. And then chain 1 to finish that puff stitch, turn, and we're going to chain 1. So you're going to be chaining 2 effectively at the end of every row, because you're working 1 chain 1 to complete your puff and then a chain 1 to start your row. So for row 2, after I've done my chain 1, I'm going to be working a puff stitch in the second chain from the hook. So in that second chain, so there's the first one, here's the second one, insert my hook and work a puff stitch in that chain to begin this row. Chain 1. Now we're going to work a puff stitch in the next chain 1 space. So in that chain 1 space between this puff stitch from the beginning below and the next puff stitch, and you can pull those puff stitches apart to find your space easily and just work a puff stitch in that space. Then we're going to be working a corner in that next chain 1 space. So I'm going to be working a puff, a chain 1, and a puff. Now really between the 2 puffs you're working 2 chains because you're working a chain 1 after every puff and then a chain 1 for your corner. So inserting your hook in there to make your first puff stitch for your corner. Chain 1 to complete that puff plus a chain 1 and work another puff stitch in that same space. And then chain 1. If you need to put a stitch marker into that chain 2 space that you just made for that corner, because that's going to be your corner every row, to mark that so it's easy to find, you could do that as well. So then puff stitch in the next chain 1 space, and then we're at the end here and we're going to be working a puff into that first chain. So on the end of that puff you're going to find your chain 1 from the beginning and you're going to be working a puff stitch in that chain 1 from the beginning of that previous row. Find that chain. If you roll that puff stitch towards you, you can find those 2 loops right there at the end. Chain 1 to complete, turn, chain 1, work a puff in that second chain from the hook, chain 1 to complete. Then we're going to be working a puff in each chain 1 space until we get to the corner. So in that next chain 1 space, work a puff stitch. In that next chain 1 space, puff. And then we're at that chain 2 corner. Go ahead and work your puff, chain 1, puff, all in that same space. And then a puff in each chain 1 space to the end. And then when we get to that last puff, we're going to be working a puff in that chain 1. And now we're simply going to be repeating that previous row. So row 3 is just a repeat to the size desired in your scarf. So you can see that my triangle is starting to form, and this is just going to continue to grow, repeating row 3 until you get to the size desired. You could either add tassels or you could add fringe, whatever you desired, or even leave it plain, whatever you wish. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. Thanks so much for being with me. As always, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss a new video. Thanks everyone. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.